First thing he told me was he was going to crush me. He told me he was studying copywriting greats and he was going to learn all the copywriting and crush me.
Because we all regress to the mean or something like that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember being a little scared.
Welcome to the best gym in the fucking world. And he was standing on like a Lamborghini. And then he panned out over this like gym that was the size of a closed down mall with a 100-yard football field down the center of it. And what looked like $1 million of equipment.
He's running large group classes. He's one of the few guests we had that was like, yeah, it's 20 people in the class or whatever it was. He's packing out his classes. He's creating these communities by putting you in a specific group to work at a specific time on a specific day every week. And he's crushing it. Hello and welcome to Gym World Worldwide. This is part 2 of our Gym World Worldwide Recognition Awards ceremony. I am your host for part 2, Mateo Lopez. Here, joining me as always is my partner in crime, my heterosexual life mate, John Edward Franklin, and my boss, Kalita Connell, CEO of Kilo, the greatest software company that ever was or ever will be, gym management software company, but also software in general, better than Google and all that other stuff. But
the greatest CEO of the, great companies start with great CEOs.
It's
trickle
true.
down,
it's
trickle
true.
down.
Yeah, lead from the what's it called? Lead from the back. What's that book?
Or the top, or leaders eat last.
Yeah,
Kalita's not eating; she's sweating.
All of that is included in this intro. I have been assigned the MC duties for part 2, just to give people a little break if they need a little rest. I will let you know that we just kept filming. All right, it's the same day. We didn't just re-wear the clothes. We're keeping it going. But you'll get this in 2 parts. And let's jump right back in. We've got some great categories, some great awards to give out. This next category, this is for all the young guns out there. This is for all the next generation, the ones who are going to lead the way into the future. This is a Rookie of the Year. So this award is going to people who are young or just like starting out or doing something new and fresh. And I think they deserve a little bit of recognition. So John, why don't we start with you? Who was your pick for this category?
So at the beginning of 2023, I wrote an article about Christian Guzman's influencer gym called Alpha Land. And so for those who are not religiously reading my newsletter, what are you doing? And then go subscribe. Yeah, go subscribe right now. And what Christian Guzman did, so if you're not familiar, he is OG YouTuber, built up a million plus on YouTube, was a gym owner throughout, training people, and was progressively moving into larger and larger spaces. Then pre-COVID, he purchased I believe, 17-acre campus in a Houston suburb and decided to build the Disneyland of fitness. And he calls it Alpha Land. And it's this beautiful gym. He's poured millions and millions of dollars into it. We just linked out to a 1-hour-long tour that he did of the gym. And he didn't even cover like a lot of areas of it. Like he couldn't even get it done in an hour. It's like Mecca. People go there. Like if you're into like YouTube bodybuilding, you travel there from like every corner of the world and like buy a hotel. You stay in like this weird Motel 6 in like this weird corner of Houston to just go train at Alpha Land every day to get in that juju. We've also talked about how like influencers actually move there. So they will relocate their entire life so they can be in an influencer gym with other influencers and create content. And I thought this was an incredible concept, like completely blue ocean strategy. Nobody else is doing this. And was interested to see.
Don't cry. We know you love it.
I mean, this is monumental. This is big. This is my Rookie of the Year. And was interested to see how it played out. And then only a couple months later, as I was scrolling through the talk, as we would do in the early days of the show. If you don't know, if you're new around here, 1, subscribe. And we appreciate you. We love you. And 2, the beginning, the very early stages of Gym World, we would look for the most interesting fitness TikToks and we would react to them with some guests and we would comment on the news going on in that day. And so as I was doing research for the show, I came across this guy and his hook was, "Welcome to the best gym in the fucking world." And he was standing on like a Lamborghini. And then he panned out over this like gym that was the size of a closed down mall with a 100-yard football field down the center of it. And what looked like $1 million of equipment and like a food court and a barber shop and then an acre outdoor gym. And at the time, none of this was built. And we did a show about it thinking like, this is never going to happen. This is so weird. Like this is an interesting flex. But the guy made it happen. Like the guy turned all his dreams into a reality. And from what I understand, he's opening like a bunch of other ones. And this guy is not a first-time gym owner. He had talked about his trials and tribulations. He had been bankrupt a few times before. He had been robbed by contractors. He had been robbed by business partners. As someone who's been robbed by a business partner and contractors, I felt him. I understand. I'd been there.
It was me. I robbed John both times. It was me.
to buy GameStop.
GameStomp, yeah.
Yeah, so my rookie of the year, who's not an actual rookie, is Relentless Tony of Fusion Gyms. And we'll probably have Imran stitch in the video I'm talking about here because it is absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen for a gym. It's unclear whether it is going to be profitable over a long period of time. We've talked about some of the strategy that they're taking, but it is incredible to watch from the sidelines. It is incredibly entertaining. He is incredibly entertaining, and I love it.
Yeah, great pick, John. Relentless Tony, a legend, really. That gym's outside of Philly, and I'm excited to check it out next time I'm in the Northeast. I also would like to know, I think we found out through the research that a lot of the funding's coming from China. It's now actually I think the gym is just a marketing play for the equipment company. That's actually the real moneymaker here. So I don't know. I thought that was a pretty bold move. I loved watching the journey. Would love to check back in on him. See how he's doing.
We're not going through another Gym World worldwide recognition award show without checking in on Relentless Tony. You mark my words and you mark your calendar. We'll be back if Kalita doesn't cancel the show.
Speaking of Kalita canceling the show, Kalita, who is your pick for Rookie of the Year?
So I kind of cheated on this one because while this person isn't a rookie, they did take over a gym and completely transform it. And this is Ian Duval in the UK. And so he bought CrossFit Central London. And the story goes, he met the guy who owns this gym and the website was not good. They got back to leads like sometimes. I don't think the equipment had been replaced in years. The gym was like, from what I understand, pretty run down. And Ian worked with the guy and ended up buying out the gym on the agreement that like, hey, if this works out, great. And if not, like maybe we just kind of go back to the way things were. And it was really, really interesting to see how he really he didn't do a whole lot on the front end just to see if this would work. So he bought the gym, he brought in some staff, he changed the website to a Kilo website. And in the first month, let me back up a little bit. This gym is in the beautiful, the arches of London. It's in a great location. So they should have been getting a lot of leads. The area is super affluent. They should have been getting a lot of leads, but they just weren't. And if they were, they just weren't being followed up with. And so in the very first month that Ian took over this gym, he got 135 leads. And he was able to take this gym that was not doing so well. I don't know financially if it was failing or anything like that, but he was able to sell a lot of these people and bring in a lot of his own staff from other locations that he has in London to transform this gym. And so that's even though it's not a rookie, I just think it's a really cool transformational story.
I think that totally counts. I think bringing a gym back to life, I think totally counts for this category. It's a rebirth, rejuvenation, a redo. So I love it. Great pick. For me, I picked Nick Page over at the Trainer Page gym. He was a guest we had on about 5 months ago. And he I think fits the definition. He's like currently 20, or at the time of the podcast, he was like 25. He started his fitness entrepreneurial journey in 2018. So that means he was like 20 or 21 when he first started. And I think what was awesome about having him on is learning about his social media strategy and how he used it to grow his gym, especially coming out of COVID too, during the lockdowns. And I think what's also notable is he was chosen to speak at the GSD Con, which is like Michael Arce's over at Loud Rumor, their big convention or whatever, their big summit. He was chosen as a speaker. I'm willing to bet he was the youngest guy to speak at that convention. And so I think his DM strategy on Instagram, really incredible. The way he reaches out to everyone who likes a post or follows his page, I think it's really remarkable because especially because his social media feed is like not that polished when you compare it to like someone like Dan at the Fort or even Cassie, right? Their stuff looks really polished, it's professionally done. His stuff is not as polished, but it's consistent and it's valuable, right? And it's a lot of social proof. And something I think he said, which was notable, was when you're running ads, a lot of people might not opt in right away to your landing page or to your offer, but they will check out your social media and they might follow you, right? And you should treat those the same way you would treat someone opting in to a Facebook lead ad or a landing page. And so his follow-up strategy is really just like ferocious and relentless. Basically someone follows or likes the post. He says, hey, thanks for following. Is there anything we can offer you to help you with your fitness goals? And then from there, it's like, can I offer you a free sweat therapy session? Do you prefer mornings or evenings? So he's got a little A/B there, and that's really effective, just getting people to continue the conversation and keep the dialogue going. And so he's able to book consultations that way. So again, really simple, but really effective strategy there. And he shared some other tips on how to create messaging templates on Instagram. So check out the episode if you haven't. But I thought he was really impressive, especially for being only 25. So really excited to see what 2024 brings for Nick Page.
And I took that strategy and literally made it a part of a talk I gave throughout the entire year. And I heard from dozens of gym owners who implemented it and had almost instant success, like just going back through their archives, their old chats or comments, and just sending out the exact same flow that Nick laid out in the show. You can go back and watch it if you want to see it, but Teo basically gave you the TLDR of it. Like people would go do that for 2 or 3 hours and they'd make like $10,000. They'd sell 4 or 5 members just from going back and doing that in a couple hours. So if you're a gym owner who's struggling, you don't have money for ads, you don't know how to run ads, just go back there, pound the pavement, do that. And this works for like Melissa Shevchenko, who's someone we may talk about later in this episode, online trainer making $500,000 a year. She ran basically the exact same playbook. And that was like her primary form of marketing. So this stuff works. Lindsay Van Schoik, who we mentioned in the previous episode, ran a similar strategy. Like it just works. Everyone who does this consistently makes a lot of money from doing it. So it's worth the time. It's just boring. It's monotonous. It requires consistency and focus. And that's why a lot of people don't do it. And it was a great pick. And for people who don't know, Mateo and Nick, I can see why Mateo picked Nick because they have a lot in common. They're kindred spirits in a way. Teo, how did you get in the gym industry? What were your first couple years like in the grind, for people who are unfamiliar or new to the show?
I went to school in New York, and one of my summers back home after the first year, I guess, I discovered CrossFit. I was introduced to CrossFit actually by my parents, and I fell in love. I thought it was an amazing methodology, and I spent a lot of time talking with the owner, Bryce, at the time, and I was just like, dude, I just want your life. I want this amazing little warehouse gym. you can work out every day whenever you want with your friends, and you're changing people's lives. And so that was kind of my dream for the next 3 years, finishing out of college, was just get into CrossFit. And I found a job posting as we were getting close to graduation. I found a job posting, and it said, I thought it was pretty serendipitous. It said, looking for a CrossFit coach. Looking for a CrossFit coach, must have a level 1 certificate, which I had, must have a year's worth of experience, which I did have, and then have some kind of special accomplishments. And then in parentheses, it says, think collegiate level athletes or sports or Ivy League degrees. And I said, well, I have one of those. What are the odds that anyone else has all 3 things at once? And I just felt like it was meant for me. And it was a job post that John had written for his second location, Bowery CrossFit. I applied, and it was up between me and Con Porter. For those of you who are not in the CrossFit world, he's like a pretty big CrossFit athlete, model, really beefy guy, really just a handsome man. And he ended up getting the job.
Yeah, it's like 200,000.
He ended up getting the job. Yeah, he ended up getting the job. And it wasn't until 10 years later that I met John on Grindr. And that's how I became the co-founder of Kilo. No, I got the job. I got the job, and that's how it all started. I got the job answering emails on Zendesk and putting people's memberships on hold in Zen Planner, and the rest is history, I think.
And it never stopped. He's still doing the same stuff.
I'm still putting people's memberships on hold for Bowery CrossFit. John sold it a long time ago. I don't even work there. I just still have the login to both the Zendesk and the Zen Planner. So I'm just
help first. I'm just
it
just goes in there.
Memberships on hold. So that was my journey. And I guess the reason why John felt it was relevant to bring it up is, I was really young. It was like my first job out of college. And I guess Nick and I were both at one point 21-year-olds who love fitness and just wanted to change the world through fitness. And so,
how about that you guys lived in a basement with no windows for years?
Well, also that too. He opened a gym in Long Island. My wife is from Long Island. His gym is in the basement of some commercial space. Bowery CrossFit was in the basement of a hot pot restaurant. So yeah, there's just a lot of parallels. And so I felt that, Nick's my pick.
Wow. You're taking me back. I'm actually going to start crying.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, and I messed this up in the intro, we started out with a celebratory beverage, a celebratory drink. And because we've kept filming, there's just been more and more celebratory drinks as we're now 3 hours into filming. So, if it sounds like we're feeling a little loosey goose with the awards, that might be why. But I recommend watching the first part of this episode, because none of this will make sense if you don't. So please go back and check that out. Moving on, next.
But we should do a cheers. We should do a cheers.
Oh, yeah, let's do a cheers. Yeah, let's do a cheers to that. We didn't cheers at the beginning.
Great 2024. Congratulations.
2024. I would also like to note that I am getting more and more sweaty and orange in this room. So if I'm looking worse and worse, that's why.
For those listening only on Spotify, Kalita, you'll have to imagine it's getting more and more orange as the episode is going on.
She's in some air-conditionless basement in Brazil somewhere, held captive. We hope she comes back and does her job. The company needs her, but
So next category here is honorable mentions. Now, the way I kind of approached this category is, as I was going through and figuring out my picks for the other awards, the other winners, there were some categories where I was like, you know what, this will be my pick, but it's really close. All right, my pick's going to Rick Mayo, but honorable mention to XYZ. That's kind of what I wrote down in my notes. And so honorable mentions, I think, should go to people who, hey, it's worth a mention that this person also kicked ass in this category, or I wanted to acknowledge this person or this trend or this fitness thing. So we'll just get into that right now. I think, John, who was your honorable mention going through all of the categories so far, or even the ones yet to come?
An honorable mention for me would be in the favorite guest category. I have to shout out my mentor, my coworker, my other boss, Chris Cooper. For those of you that don't know, Chris Cooper is the head honcho, the face, the guy making sure the trains run on time over at Two Brain Business. And he's an absolute content machine. Like, he started writing blog posts out of his basement in middle of nowhere, Canada, talking about the lessons he was learning running a gym, and turned that into this worldwide company that is worth tens of millions of dollars. I won't say how many tens of millions, but it's a lot. It's more money than one would need to spend in a comfortable lifestyle. And there's no shortage of podcasts with Chris Cooper. There's no shortage of blog posts. There's no shortage of information. Like, he's got books, he's got it all. But the reality is, I spend more time with him than anyone, maybe even his wife, just talking with him, talking business. And I've been along the Two Brain journey as first a client, then a contractor, and then a partner in the business. And so I know a lot of things about what Chris Cooper is feeling, and there's a relationship there that he doesn't have with basically anybody else that he goes on shows and talks about. And so there was one before the most recent State of the Industry where I brought him on as kind of like, let's talk this out and get comfortable talking about the points before you go on all the bigger shows. And he came on and he was really casual and talking about things in a really informal way. And I got a ton of feedback from that show, even from Mateo, who's worked with Chris on a very close basis before, saying like, I didn't know this about Chris, or I'd never heard that story before. And I was able to pull some things out of Chris Cooper that I don't think he's ever talked about publicly, that I thought was really helpful and interesting, and made him sound like a normal human being instead of like a writing robot out of his basement in Canada, owning this like gym mentorship empire. And I thought just the feedback we got from that show was incredible. And that's why he was my honorable mention.
Yeah. An honorable mention to your honorable mention. Yeah, we were joking before that I'm still writing emails, customer support emails for Bowery CrossFit. I probably still would be if it wasn't for Chris Cooper. Definitely changed the trajectory of my life. I think everyone in this chat as well. So yeah, definitely a great pick. Kalita, who was yours?
Well, I had two, and I'll mention the first one really quick because Andrew Frezza, I think, was just a breath of fresh air in terms of like a reality check for a lot of people. He was very real about, like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And I think it was really refreshing to hear that on, like, with you guys and on a podcast. I know I've sent that episode to a few people who were questioning like if this was still the right path for them. So I just wanted to like give a shout out to Andrew and like thank him for being just real and like, hey, it's okay to admit that like this might not be for you anymore, and it's run its course, and that's okay, and it's okay to like want something different.
Can you give a quick backstory for people who may not be familiar with his story or didn't listen?
Sure.
Like, some guests don't listen to every one of the podcasts. I don't know what's wrong with them. But we'll give them a pass here, and we'll give them 2 sentences to explain who Andrew Frezza is.
Yeah, so Andrew owns, or what did own, part of Fit Town Jupiter, which is like massive gym where John and Mateo are. And they were quite successful. They got hit hard through the pandemic as well. But, there was more than just a gym. There was some real estate. There was like, the whole family was involved. So I imagine that like separating yourself from that would be very, very difficult. And, putting your hand up and saying like, hey, I maybe don't want to do this anymore with your family is like just so much harder than with anybody else. And so, I'm sure you guys have more to add to this, but he decided that it just really wasn't his thing anymore. And he wanted to spend more time with his family, and he just wasn't prepared to do what was required of those next steps to grow to that next level. And that's okay.
No, I think that's a great point from that episode. Like, yeah, if you're struggling on maybe letting go or closing the book on this chapter and, moving on to the next one, if Andrew can tell his brother, I got to sell, sorry, I got to go, you can too, And I think I second what you said, Cleta, that it was very refreshing to hear the other side of it. Like, yeah, look, we had this awesome dream. I was coaching coaches, on a larger scale. And yeah, I hit a point where I was ready to move on, and that's okay for some of us. And so, yeah, great.
And it wasn't even like they were a struggling gym. Like they were
doing
like
$90,000 part.
Like they're still well over $1 million, and they own the real estate, and it's probably worth like $5 million. Like just the part that gym takes up. And so like it was a wild success story, but he still said, hey, this is not for me, and hung up his gloves. And it was definitely one of the only episodes where it was like a little more based in vulnerability rather than us being like, look at this gym owner. He does everything right. He crushes it. He's a millionaire. And it was one of those guys, like he had all that, but he was like, yeah, I have all this, but it's still, not right for me, and I'm going to go do the other thing. So it was an interesting angle from someone who had it all. So if you're someone who's feeling a little burnt out, that's definitely a good episode to go back and listen to.
Yeah, and the other one that I had was Dane McCarthy. Really quick, he owns West Village?
West Village Athletics.
West Village Athletics.
And Village
a tiny
Athletics.
little village in this in the province of in the province of New York City.
Yeah. And a few, he's got a few locations, and he markets specifically to Gen Z. And I am not friends with anybody who is in Gen Z, so I thought it was fascinating to kind of get a peek into what this demographic really wants, that they're lonely, that they need community. And he put in some really interesting rules in his gym, like everyone wears black, you work out with your squad. It's just a really interesting model to me. I love, I'm a big fan of a well-written SOP and a boundary, and this is how it's done. And that really, it felt really cool and really right for, really niching into that demographic of hey, you don't have to go out and buy the most brand new Lululemon pink top. You just wear your blacks and no one cares. And then you hang out with your squad on the weekends. And I was like, I don't go to the gym to make friends, but this sounds cool. And he's quite successful at it, and he's expanding, and he's getting investors, and it's a really interesting model. So he was my next up.
I think that's a great honorable mention. We had another category in the previous episode, who would you bet on, or what trend would you bet on? There are people betting on Dane. There are people betting on his model, and it's really, really cool because of some of the things Cleta said. I think what's really impressive from that episode that I took away was he's running large group. He's running large group classes. He's one of the few guests we had that was like, yeah, it's 20 people in the class or whatever it was. And it's not necessarily a high ticket. It's, $199 a month or something along those lines. It wasn't like $800 a month for semi-private. And he's packing out his classes. He's creating these communities by putting you in a specific group to work at a specific time on a specific day every week. And he's crushing it. And there's people in the fitness industry, as Cleta said, who are betting on him. And I think it's really great. And the other trend that I think he's picking up on is he's incorporating being outside into the model, right? He has these scheduled classes where you're going to run on the West Side Highway outside with your squad. So yeah, really, really impressive stuff that he's doing over there. So my honorable mention was, I guess, going back to the who was your favorite guest of 2023 category. I mentioned that Dr. Connor Heffernan was my pick. Something else that we discussed in his episode that I really enjoyed was we spent a lot of time discussing the history of gyms and how the first gym and the first gyms, how they came to be was they started off as cooperatives, right? They were these fitness clubs. They were these social clubs. Also kind of Dane's model is kind of carrying that torch as well. They were started because there were these groups of people who got together with similar interests and wanted to help each other get stronger and get fitter. And, imagine like the 1800s, someone down the street had a dumbbell, and someone else down the street had like a couple stones, an Atlas stone, and then another person, maybe they had access to a barn, and you basically pooled your resources together. And that's how these first gyms, these first fitness clubs, these social clubs got started. And I think that while I have some issues with CrossFit, I think they are carrying that legacy, that kind of community aspect that people love so much, kind of embodies that cooperative spirit of these first gyms that we discussed. And I think Andrew Charlesworth, who was also a guest we had on the show, mentioned this in his episode. There's this humanitarian piece to CrossFit that I think kind of relates to what we discussed with Connor. And so my honorable mention is actually Oscar Joad, because one, he, for this category, if we're talking about favorite guests, he's probably my favorite person in the CrossFit world. And I think he's an example of what a real CrossFit affiliate, he's an example of like someone doing OG CrossFit successfully, and growing through some of the other stuff we talked about in that episode, which was, 6-week challenge ads and Facebook ads. And he's a wonderful human. And
wonderful human.
So,
we all love him.
Honorable mention. We all love him. And we had to wrap up the episode because he had to take a really big poop. And I think that was also something that I wanted to honorably mention as well. So shout out to Oscar.
And he made the he translated our entire product to Swedish. He was the first guy to do that.
He was our first client before we were Gym Lead Machine.
Yeah. Yeah, he was
which
one
was
of
the first name of our
original
company.
Clients. Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Love him to death. First thing he told me was he was going to crush me. Those were Oscar's first words to me.
I think I was there for that. Yeah, I think I was on the phone.
He told me he was studying copywriting greats and he was going to learn all the copywriting and crush me.
Yeah,
and I knew from that point forward that I loved him.
Because we all regress to the mean or something like that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember being a little scared, and now I'm a little in love.
I'm still scared, but it's great.
All right, so moving on to the next category in our awards list, we have the weirdest trend of 2023. This is the weirdest trend we saw. We're going to talk about more trends coming up. We talked about some of the winners and losers here. But yeah, what was the weirdest thing we saw in 2023? John, we're going to start with you.
So Kalita and Mateo know me well, so they know I'm a sucker for trendy stuff. Like if everyone's jumping in an ice bath, we're going to buy an ice bath. If everybody's going to get blood work, your boy's going to get an extensive blood panel done. If the team's training their neck, if the influencers are training their neck, I'm going to train my neck.
If Zen is the way you're going to make yourself more productive and make more money, we're going to be popping some Zen packs.
If Zen is not a sin, we're going to Zen. Whatever it is, I'm down. I want to try it. I want to try it at least once to see if it's for me. But the weirdest trend of 2023 is this. It's definitely like the rise of Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson is this guy who's in the tech scene. He sold his company Braintree to PayPal. He made like $700 or $800 million in the sale. And then decided somewhere along the journey he's going to spend as much money as he can, like trying not to die. And so this guy spends $2 million a year doing all these different treatments and therapies. He's a vegan. He flies in all his experts. He has like a medical team that their job is to just slow his rate of aging. So it's like, if your chronological age is 35, like in 365 days, your chronological age will be 36. But what he's tracking is his biological age along with his chronological age. So if his chronological age is 36, but his biological age is 35 and a half, he's only aged like half a year in a 1 year period. And so he started this thing called the Rejuvenation Olympics, where a bunch of nerds with a bunch of money from all over the world compete to see how quickly they can slow their rate of aging. And they do all types of crazy things, like they time their meals, they sleep 12 hours a day, they live in like hermetic capsules and they don't see the sun, and just really taking it to the extreme. And while I respect the message and this idea and like having a positive role model in the fitness space, that's basically their message is, eat your veggies and sleep a lot, and work out, like that's great. But this idea of like making all the money in the world to then go backwards and live this like super restrictive life seems a little weird to me. And I think a lot of people are taking the wrong message from that. You know, you see these people who are like 70 pounds overweight wearing like a constant glucose monitor, like as if they're a diabetic to see which foods they react to poorly and well. But it's like, if you're 70 pounds overweight, like chances are the issue is like not whether your glucose responds better to an apple or a banana. There's probably some lower hanging fruit there. And so a lot of people get lost in the weeds optimizing for all this crazy shit, when the reality is you should probably just like sleep a little more and eat some vegetables and like lift weights and like don't really worry about all the rest. Like the big foundational pieces are are going to do a lot more than worrying about this fringe stuff that really only matters to the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% of people trying to slow their aging down. Plus, you know, I don't have $800 million, but if I did, I'd want to enjoy some parts of life. You know, I want to have a nice bottle of wine every once in a while. I want to eat some nice seafood. I want to go to a restaurant and maybe, you know, stay up once in a while past 9 p.m. And that's just me, but I think it's crazy and weird, but, you know, I'm here for it.
My other honorable mention is that John was able to use an example of someone obsessing over fruit and then saying, I think there's other low-hanging fruit for you to obsess over. I thought that was pretty clever. But that was pretty cool.
Just going off the dome. We're improv here. Hour 3 of the Gym Worldwide recognition.
This is hour
awards.
10 of recording. Kalita.
I
Tomato
didn't have
Kalita.
Yeah, tomato Kalita. What was your pick?
I actually didn't have anything for this. I spend a lot of my time looking inward at Kilo and not necessarily looking outward at these weird fitness trends.
Literally, that's what we pay you the big bucks for. So that's good.
Yeah, the fact that you don't know this is great. You're just grinding too hard to notice trends. Forget trends.
I still think today it's pretty weird to want to open a gym, even though we all did it and we've all been there and we're blinded at the beginning.
I really
like
that
pretty
take.
Weird.
I really like that take. That is a really weird trend. I love that. I love that. Well, kind of piggybacking off of a weird take on the weird trend category, for me, my pick for this award was the absence of TikTok on our show, on Gym World Worldwide. Not one of our gym owners, guests, or gurus, or historians, not one of them really mentioned it as a part of their marketing and content strategy. So I thought that was actually kind of weird looking back, because we talked a lot about content this year on the show. We've mentioned Cassie Day like 10 times on this episode in particular, and her content strategy on Instagram. We talked about the guys at the Fort, how they went all in on buying equipment to film content and podcasts. Jack Wheeler, another person that probably should have gotten another honorable mention, but he creates a lot of PDFs and sends those out with Facebook ads, and that's how he drives growth and gets leads. But no one really talked about how TikTok has driven growth at their gym or in their gym business guru mentorship practice, right? And if you think about where content is created and consumed, like for the rest of the world outside of the gym world, TikTok is the place, right? A lot of the reels that I see on Instagram are just reposts from TikTok, right? So it is weird to me that it was not mentioned by any of our guests. And I think it's particularly notable that on our most recent episode with Cassie Day ended with her asking, does anyone know how to do TikTok? Does anyone know anyone killing it on TikTok in the gym world? And that's not to say that fitness TikTok isn't big. John mentioned this on the previous iteration of this show before we started interviewing gym owners and people like that. We did, many episodes just looking at fitness trends, fitness news, fitness influencers. And a lot of the content we talked about was TikTok content. I mean, we did an episode with Mark talking all about the fitness influencers on TikTok. But when it comes to our brick and mortar gym entrepreneurs, no one mentioned it. Even the online only killers like Lindsay Van Schoik and Melissa Shevchenko. Melissa, she was our most popular YouTube episode, I believe. So even these people who are online only and killing it, they're not really utilizing TikTok either. A lot of it's still Facebook. So I did think that was a weird trend.
So there were two people who brought it up. Well, we brought it up on the Dana episode saying, hey, did you know people are making TikTok content about the gym?
That's true.
And he seemed kind of surprised about that. I was like, hey, look at this. We played a video of this guy that had, 300,000 views or something like that, where like it was like a day in the life of like a Gen Z fitness CEO. And like a big part of it was dedicated to going to some class at the Fort. And then Anthony Venari, who runs Fit Insider, also mentioned TikTok and people doing interesting things via TikTok as something that he was looking into, and he was kind of eyeing concepts and wanted to invest in concepts that were using that as like a primary marketing strategy. So, again, like Teo, big savvy investor like Teo, a lot of big brains in the fitness industry see the value of it, but we haven't heard it trickle down into the brick and mortar space, and we haven't talked to people who are using it well to grow their local business.
So weird trend. Anyway, moving on. Awesome. Let's talk about our next category. And this, I think, we've kind of previewed this category. We've talked about some of the things in this category already, but this is going to be predictions for 2024. What are the big predictions going into the new year? Khalil, let's start with you, mixing it up.
Sure. So this might be early indicators, but what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing at Kilo, is we're seeing like last year we saw a lot of gyms being bought up, right? So you're seeing this like COVID or pandemic hangover and these gyms struggling, and more successful gyms coming in and saying like, oh, well, I'll buy this gym and, I could turn it around, that kind of thing. And recently, we're seeing some gym owners say, you know what, that other location that I had, whether they've had it for years or whether they've picked it up through the last couple of years, it's not as lucrative, and they are going to be better set by putting all their eggs in one basket. And so I'm not sure if I'm hoping that this is a prediction, but or not, but like what I'm seeing is some of these gym owners that have had multi-locations sometimes for quite some time, are scaling down. And they're putting money into something that's a little bit more lucrative, or spending a little bit more time with their family, or investing their dollars, just in in one single location, or maybe two locations instead of three. So I'm thinking that could be a prediction going into 2024. The other thing that I think is huge in my world right now, and maybe a little bit unrelated to like the gym world specifically, is women's sports. The PWHL has just kicked off in the last 2 days. And so if you haven't watched it, you definitely should, because it's good hockey. And, there's women's basketball.
What is PWHL? What does that stand for?
The Professional Women's Hockey League. They've started with 6 teams, and it's very, very exciting. It's great hockey. Some very, very famous hockey players are playing in this. The women's basketball scene is really kicking off. They're breaking records. PWHL in particular just broke a record last night with having the most attendees at a women's hockey game ever, which was over 8,000 people in Ottawa. So it's really exciting to me to see some of these women's sports categories really take off, because it's good sport. And we haven't been given the chance. And I'm hoping that, this maybe isn't a 2024 prediction, but in the next couple of years, I really do hope that we see more women at a younger age get into sport and train in the gym for their sport. So I do think that we're going to see like women's sports performance specific training in the next couple of years, just because like this trend, it's not a trend. It's taking off, and it's here to stay, I think.
To piggyback off that, I think that's a good point. And we've seen this over the last, year and a half of doing this show. There's been a huge surge of interest for women and strength training, right? You're seeing a lot more women getting in strength and conditioning gyms, doing squats, doing deadlifts, a lot more on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. We covered some of these strength influencers who are women also in past iterations of the show. And just pulling this was one of the recent newsletters from Fit Insider and Anthony Vernari. Women's health is like a big takeaway from his 2023 kind of wrap up. He says women's health investments are up 314% since 2018, with startups tackling issues from maternal health and sports gender gaps, which I think is pretty much in line with exactly what you're saying, Kalita. And so, yeah, he ends it with, as science wakes up to women's needs, companies highlighting hormones, fertility, and menopause promise continued progress. And again, bringing it back to John's favorite pick from all the other categories, Lindsay Van Schoik. I mean, this is exactly her niche here. So, yeah, I think that is a great pick for your predictions, Kalita.
Proud of you.
So, hey, John, what was your pick for predictions of 2024?
So we talked a lot about ice baths and ice bath influencers and plunges in the previous episode, and how that has just had a meteoric rise since COVID. My prediction is that the ice bath trend top ticked in 2023, and that we will see a progressive downtrend in 2024 as these guys like the Andrew Hubermans and Peter Attias of the world find the next thing to get people hooked on, because they can't just keep talking about the same thing over and over and over. Talked earlier with Brian Johnson. It's like the basics never really change, but if you're in media, you need novelty, you need new stuff, you need new ideas, you need the red light therapy on your grundle. Like, you need to figure out what the thing is to get the people to go buy the other thing, so you're entertaining. Because if you just repeat the same boring stuff over and over and over, people don't want to hear it. They don't listen. So I think that's top pick. I don't think it's going away, but I don't think it's getting any bigger. And one of the concepts that we've talked about a few times last year that I think is going to grow is this idea of like a modern bathhouse or like a modern country club. So I think everybody's lonely. Everybody wants community. Workplace no longer provides that, since you're not physically meeting with people anymore, and you're not physically going to a workplace in a lot of situations. So you have these, people our age, millennials and Gen Z, where you have a lot of disposable income, but you're not like tethered to one place. Like Teo has 4 different houses and just spends his life going to all the different ones.
Maybe that's why I'm not rich. I've just got
just
too
like
many houses.
Too much real estate. That's the problem. I think people are going to want experiences. I think people are going to want to relax. I think people are going to want to get away from their phones. And so this idea of like an other ship where you go to this location, you pay $50, you go into a big sauna, you do breath work, and you align your chakras, and you get centered, and you're around other people who value their health and wellness. I think that's going to be trending. Like, they do actual like ice bath classes. Friend of the pod, Cassie Day, talked about how much she liked it. Kalita, CEO of Kilo, talked about how she liked a different concept that she went to in Montreal. So I think we're going to start seeing these ice bath and communal sauna locations permeate into the suburbs. If you are somebody who is creating one of these concepts and wants to come to Jupiter, Florida, slide into Mateo for Business's DMs, and investors, maybe us. Who knows? We want to see that thing here. Other end of that trend is this idea of like a communal or like a modern country club. And I think Lifetime is trying to corner that market. Like, I don't know. We live in Florida. There's a million country clubs here. Like, they cost like $250,000 to join, and you get to play golf, and like, forget golf. Golf's for old people and trust fund kids. And like, it's not for me. There's people with money who don't want to play golf, and you don't want to pay $250,000 to look at a golf course. And so some people are spending big money to create these new concepts where people can gather and congregate and be around interesting people IRL rather than like in a mastermind setting. And I think the closest thing I've seen to that being realized is Lifetime. And so they're approaching it by a $300 a month pay for access gym membership. And I think some of these influencer gyms also fall into that category. But I do think there's a lot of meat on the bone creating like an actual communal membership based gathering place for successful millennials that want to interact and eat and drink and do activities with people around them who are in the same kind of boat.
Another honorable mention is John saying, bring that thing here. That's going to be my my catchphrase going into 2024, I think. So for me, my prediction for 2024, very similar to John's. I think just brick and mortar recovery concepts, you're going to see more of them. Recovery in general has been on the rise, and I think will continue to be on the rise. Therabody has a partnership with, airlines, and Kalita mentioned Othership, and Anthony Venari wrote recently about wellness raves. So I just think people spending on the wellness category is still surging. There's franchises like Restore Hyper Wellness, which are growing. Even the older legacy players like Planet Fitness and 24 Hour Fitness, they're incorporating wellness tech into their areas, into their memberships to entice new members. You've also got companies offering, full body kind of MRIs, these kinds of like full body wellness scans. You've got people doing AI for wellness. So all that wellness, brick and mortar wellness, I think that's going to be, you're going to see other concepts, like John said, modern bathhouses with AI. That's kind of where I see things going. So John and Kalita, we're getting close to the end here. The penultimate category to wrap up our awards here is a bit of a curveball. Who's a dream guest for 2024? We've kind of left 2023 behind, and we're looking into the future, looking at who we had on in 2023. Looking at our roster, our rogues gallery, who we want to see coming into 2024. Who's the dream pick? Can be anyone. It can be someone we know will never be able to get on. We'll just never be big enough. Who do you want to see coming in on the Gym World Worldwide podcast? Kalita, let's start with you.
I would love to see Andrew Hiller with you guys. He's someone who's just pick. Like, yeah, I know maybe it's an obvious pick for this crowd, but not only is he a great Kilo client, and he texts he texts me whenever he needs something. It's always easy stuff, and he's always like so gracious and wonderful when it's all done. Like, he's just like such a nice guy to chat with. I also think that the way that he ruffles feathers is pretty interesting.
It's good content. It's good content.
Yeah, it is good content. And I just, you know what? I just really like him. And yeah, I'd love to see him. Honestly, I'd just love to see Matteo and him in the same room.
I've asked him. I think he's too big time for us now. I think, I don't know. I think he's just too
maybe
famous.
If I asked him?
Maybe
I asked him?
Well, you asked him early on in the show. We're approaching 500 subscribers. You got to be, we're getting pretty big time, Teo.
Maybe the next time he needs something, I'll say like, I'll do this, but in exchange for.
Oh yeah, we can strong arm him.
Barter.
We can bribe him. Yeah,
blackmail.
We can coerce him. Blackmail. Oh, I couldn't think of the words. It's really late. It's 5:40 p.m. So yeah. Yes.
Would hate for your website to go down. Wow, would be terrible if that email deliverability. Wow, a lot of people marking that as spam. That would be awful for you, wouldn't it?
Would be weird if we changed the picture on your homepage to something you didn't like.
Wow, those spam plugins. It's weird how they don't get updated sometimes. Teo, who'd you have? I want to hear you.
You want to hear me?
I want to hear you speak about who you want to come on the show in 2024.
All right. Well, this pick is, there's no way to really tee this up. I want to see Eric Schreiman on the show. He is the CEO of Club Fitness. It's a kind of a Globo Jimmy chain in the Midwest area, or St. Louis Midwest? I don't actually know. But yeah, I want to see him on the show. Every guest we've had on who I think might have access to him or whose network is large enough to maybe connect me. I've asked everyone. No one knows him. No one knows how to find him. He won't respond to my DMs. I can't find his email address. I've tried many times, and yeah, I wanna have him on. I want to learn more about club fitness, particularly. I want to learn about his ESOP program, his employee stock option program, for this chain of big box gyms. Um, I think that hiring and retaining talent is one of the biggest challenges in the fitness industry. And it's something that we struggled with was compensation. And it's something I try to make a point to ask of every one of our guests on the show. Like, how do you staff this location? How do you compensate them? And I'm always particularly interested when some of the guests we've had on, Andrew Frezza, Jack Wheeler, a lot of these people pride themselves on compensating their staff well, and they can get some of their staff members making six figures. There's some of our guests that we've had on who have coaches making six figures. Some of them, as coaches or personal trainers, are making more than a lot of the gym owners I know. And that was always kind of a goal of ours when we ran our gyms, and we just couldn't quite get there. And that's why I always ask, when I have the opportunity, I ask how you're compensating and retaining talent. And I think having an ESOP program is pretty interesting, and I want to learn more about it, particularly because, again, it's a big box kind of a chain. It's like a big box gym. So I'm really interested. I want to talk to him. I want to learn more. So anyone out there listening who can find access to this man, please let me know. Respond in the comments. Tag him here. Do your thing, internet. That's my pick.
So for me, I'm looking to speak with Nabil Saeed, the CEO and founder at Absolute Recomp. Some of you may know him as AR_Saeed1. He's building, I think he has 2 now, influencer gyms. These are multi-million-dollar facilities with marble, all the fixtures, the fancy equipment, just over-the-top stuff. And this guy makes hilarious content on TikTok. My favorite gym owner-related content. He's 25 years old, apparently started owning gyms at 15. Unclear how he went from nothing to opening up these multi-million-dollar facilities. But sounds like very entertaining. Enjoy his content. Want to hear how he's doing this, how he's thinking about it, what the strategy is. But just haven't been able to snag him on the show. So if you're out in Texas and you know AR Saeed, get him in here. Get him in here. Tell him his friends at Gym World want to talk to him.
Tell him we love him and we miss him, and it's time for him to come home. Great picks all around, everybody. We're wrapping up here. Gym World listeners, thank you for sticking around. We love you. Please be sure to like, subscribe if you haven't. We've got our last category here. By Kilo. We've got our last category. This is it to round out the 2023 wrap up here. We've got our favorite moment from 2023. And this seems to be, John wrote this category. It seems to be like a personal one for each of us. Is that right, John?
Yeah. What touched you? What was your favorite? We've all been working together for many a years now. We've been through highs and lows, building Kilo, building Gym World. These have all been challenging projects that required a lot of us, personally and professionally, and like we had some fun. So what are things you stick out like when we're sitting together drinking skulls 10 years from now, what do you think we're going to look back on and say, wow, that thing from 2023 that was special?
That's a callback to part 1 of this episode series, so be sure to go check that one out. If you haven't, you'll get the skull reference. So a little
Taylor,
behind
you go
the
first.
scenes.
First.
I'm gonna go first. But just a little behind the scenes action here, people. We have a little shared doc of notes for what we had planned and what we wanted to say for this episode. But for this category, I put mine. Kalita put hers. John's is blank. So we're gonna come in totally blind for John's favorite moment. So he's gonna go last because none of us know what he's about to say. I will fall on the sword. I will go first. And again, this is a toughie. There were just a lot of great moments. I'm just going to treat these all as honorable mentions because there's no way I could pick just one. One of my favorite moments was writing the Kilo theme song. I snuck it into one of the ad reads for a previous Gym World Worldwide episode. I stood up really, really late when my wife was in London on a work trip writing this song, and it was one of my favorite moments of 2023. Another really joyous moment for me was the Business for Unicorns meetup in Vegas. This was an event that Mark Fisher Fitness, and Michael Keeler, another person we had on the show, that they put on for their group, for their mentor group, and I got the opportunity to speak. And I talked about how to optimize your Google business profile. Follow Kilo for more tips on how to do that. And I think that was a highlight for me in 2023, being able to speak and really interacting with that group of gym owners was really, really special. And lastly, my highlight was launching version 1 of our Kilo Gym Management software. Getting that out of beta for us was a really big accomplishment. Shout out to all the developers, Javin, our technical lead, and everyone in customer support, Laura, everyone else out there. Couldn't have done without you. Really proud of the team, and really excited to what we're going to build in 2024.
So if you want insight into what it's like working with Mateo Lopez, that was it right there. When you ask Mateo to make a decision, what is your favorite? What is the best thing? What should we do here? He's going to provide you with 4 to 6 different things that he thinks are great and just lets you decide, It's just decisiveness, favorite is tough for Teo, There's just so many good things in the world of Teo. The glass is always
I have too much love to give. How can I just give it all to one thing, John?
The glass is always overflowing when you're Mateo for business.
Kalita, do you have a favorite?
I do. I like Mateo, had a long list of things, but I have 2 that really stuck out.
I saw your notes. I thought we were all going to do a bunch of things. All right, fine. Yeah, so I'm going to be the asshole who couldn't pick.
I'm sorry, you guys don't know what favorite means?
It was a tie. I love hanging out with you guys. So going to the CrossFit Games with you 2 and one of our wonderful staff members, Nicole, and hanging out with clients at the CrossFit Games and photobombing all those photos, and then getting texts from our clients and friends and them saying I saw you on TV. That was a pretty awesome weekend, even though it was I was very tired at the end of it. It's always slightly terrifying hanging out with you guys, but also I love it at the same time. That was really quite wonderful. So thank you for suggesting that we do that, John.
We'll be back there next year if CrossFit doesn't fire us after me calling Jay DeCoons the biggest loser of 2023. So,
Clea, did you have 2 or are you sticking to that one?
The second one is we hit 1,000 customers at Kilo, which is just this goal that, we had in our heads. We're hopefully we get there. And, we had a plan and it just felt so far away 3.5 years ago. It just felt so far away and we hit it and we exceeded it before we thought we would. And we're already starting 2024 ahead of target. And it feels really good to have, not only clients that trust and love us, but also a staff of almost 50, if you can believe it, 46 people at my last count, that are all on this mission with us together. And it feels really good. I was telling some of our staff a couple of weeks ago, this is the best I've felt about a team and a staff since I own my gym, and since we started this company. And so it feels really good to have just that level of confidence with my team and with our clients. And I'm just really proud of what they've been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time.
John, your most favorite moment from 2023 is?
So for those of you that don't know, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I spend most of my time working with Two Brain Business and Chris Cooper growing that business, because a lot of people who use Two Brain go on to buy Kilo. And my time spent in Kilo is mostly on marketing. I would say 99% of it is just getting attention to the brand. And so I have a budget that Kalita allocates every quarter, and it's called Shenanigans. And with that budget, I can spend it on whatever I want. And I just don't tell Kalita, I just spend it. And so earlier this year, Kalita went on vacation. And she said, I've been working so hard. I'm burnt out. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to check my computer. Never going to look at this thing. I'll be back in a week. Just leave me alone. I don't want anything crazy to happen. And the moment Kalita left, I posted on my Facebook group, or on my Facebook profile, that I would give somebody free Kilo for life if they got the Kilo logo tattooed on their body. And I wasn't expecting the response that we got. So I immediately got like 30 or 40 DMs of people who like wanted to know the fine print of the details. And so I finally got to like the finish line with our original customer, like the first legit Kilo Gym Management customer, which was Kate Rollins. And we'd worked it out. She's like, okay, I'm going to go tomorrow. And it's like, okay, cool. Our first customer, first tattoo. And then that evening, like the day of the post, Matt Ivy tags me in a post, and he'd already got it tatted onto his body without talking to me. Not a single, didn't even know any of the details, just full send Kilo tattoo on the body within like 12 hours of the post going live. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever. Just like for someone to take that risk and tattoo Kilo onto their body, not needing to know the details, just going to let it ride. And then Kate ended up getting hers the next day. So instead of one person getting a Kilo tattoo, we had two people get full on Kilo tattoos within a 24-hour period. And then Kalita logged on to her Facebook profile, realizing that there had been like a just a Kilo tattoo festival going on the week that she was gone, and didn't want any shenanigans going on. And it just brought me so much joy. It just brought me so much joy that our customers would trust in us enough to get the logo tattooed. It brought me so much joy that Kalita opening up her Facebook profile to see like 375 notifications. And it's just something I'm going to remember forever, because, not a lot of companies have customers who tattoo their logo on their body. And we've seen other companies do similar things since then. But it was definitely one of the most memorable experiences from this year for me.
And only just like a week ago or a few days ago, we did the Kilo, our first ever Kilo Client Awards. And of course, we mentioned Kate. And she will get this, like the Client Ambassador Award every year for the rest of her life as well. Because what a better ambassador than someone who's got your logo tattooed on their body.
Well, she went on to name her dog Kilo as well. So
That's true.
So she has a Kilo tattoo.
Yeah. It's the most adorable little, actually big baby you will ever see. And yeah, it has the Kilo name and the Kilo collar. And we love her. She loves us. We love her. It's just a beautiful relationship.
Forever grateful for Kate. Matt, thank you for getting the ink. We appreciate you. And we got to see it in person at the Two Brain Summit, which was incredible.
Well, Gym World, it's about 6 p.m. over here. The sun has officially set, and the sun has set on 2023. But the night is always darkest before the dawn. 2024 is here, and we're really excited for all she has to offer us. Yes, it's an election year, so for roughly 50% of you, it's not going to be a good year. I won't know which one until later, but I cannot wait for more Gym World. I cannot wait for more Kilo, and I just feel truly blessed to be here with both you, John and Kalita, and all of you, dear listeners. So with that, congratulations to all of our award winners, and except for one in particular, we love you, and we'll see you next time. That about does it for Gym World Worldwide. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a hateful comment, and we'll see you in 2024.
Love you, Jim World.